So once again, thank you all for taking the time to join us today. Just so that everyone knows, we are recording the session so that if somebody's unable to attend and wants to view it, or if any of you want to view it again, it will be available online. So thank you. My name is Kelly Coleman. I am with the Medical School for International Health, and joining me today is Beth Chesser. What we're going to do is go over some information about the Medical School for International Health, and then we'll end it a little early and open it up for Q&A. So if anybody has any questions, they can definitely feel free to ask them at that point. You can enter them in the chat box throughout the presentation, or you can just wait till the end and we'll open it up and people can ask their questions that way. So the Medical School for International Health at Ben-Gurion University was founded over 20 years ago, really as the premier medical school in the world for training doctors, not just on the science behind medicine, but on all the other factors that impact the health of individuals and populations, with a focus on global health. And we'll talk a little bit more about global health as we get into the presentation. But global health really is not just about working outside of your own country, but it's also working locally, working within your own country, treating diverse patient populations, and really being able to be a physician in a global world where people are traveling and diseases are traveling and everything like that. So a little more specific about the Medical School for International Health. As I said, it was founded over 20 years ago with really the philosophy of educating a new generation of physicians who are much more culturally competent, had a much more broader understanding of medicine all around the world, understood the impact of cultural, economic, political, and environmental factors on individuals and populations, whether they're locally or internationally. So our curriculum is a little different. We're going to get into that in a little bit, but it incorporates global health components into all 4 years of the core MD program. MSIH is a relatively small school, so we're part of a big university, which we'll talk about, but we enroll about 30 to 35 students each year in a given class. So it's a nice small learning environment. And we really prepare our physicians to be skilled physicians who can work anywhere in the world. Again, whether it's working in their backyard, working within their country somewhere, or working somewhere around the world. So MSIH provides comprehensive medical training to all of our students so that they're really trained to work effectively with underserved and sufficiently served populations. So they're able to treat patients when they have all those resources available to them, but they're also able to work with underserved populations who may not have those same resources available to them, or perhaps when you're being that physician, you may not have all those resources in terms of diagnosing and treating a patient, but you still know how to work with that patient, provide the best possible healthcare that you can. MSIH students study medicine alongside other disciplines. As I said before, we really train students not only on the science behind medicine, but all the other factors that impact the health of individuals and populations worldwide. So you'll study microbiology and biochemistry, and you'll study the cardiovascular system, but you're also going to study perhaps the sociology of medicine, or refugee health, epidemiology. You're going to take ethics courses. All of those different courses combined will make you a much more well-rounded physician. And a big component to our training at MSIH is really working with diverse communities worldwide. So where we're located in Beersheba is a very diverse patient population. It's really an area in Israel that a lot of immigrants have settled. So you have a lot of people, the languages themselves that you'll hear when you're spoken there. So you'll hear Hebrew spoken, you'll hear Arabic spoken, you'll hear English spoken, but you'll also hear Russian and French and a whole bunch of North African dialects, because really people from all over the world have settled into Beersheba. So it's a really great opportunity to work with a diverse patient population. And as you'll see when we talk a little bit later, our students also have other opportunities to really interact with very diverse patient populations worldwide. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth to talk a little bit more.
Thank you, Kelly, very much. And thank you everyone who's joining us today. A little bit of an overview on Ben-Gurion University as well as Beersheba. Ben-Gurion University is always over and over again voted #1 for student experience in Israel. I mean, we have a very vibrant student life and activities and extracurricular opportunities for our students. It is the fastest growing institution in terms of accomplishments as an educational system as well as numbers. Our school is located in Beersheba, which is the capital of the Negev. Ben-Gurion University has over 20,000 students with over 4,000 faculty. The students and faculty are extensively integrated into all aspects of the city, including community outreach, volunteer work, and social life. Transformation of Beersheba over the years has really made it a dynamic city, as Kelly has mentioned, to live as well as to study medicine. Beersheba is the fourth largest city in Israel, behind the three that many people know, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, Haifa, but we are probably growing systemically more and faster than the other cities. And it is a melting pot. The city represents all the diverse waves of immigration that have gone on through the country as well as in the city. When the state of Israel was founded in 1948, there was a very large Arab and Bedouin population in Beersheba. And as there have been waves of immigration through the years, that has come to be reflected in the population of Beersheba as well. Whether it be the waves of the Ethiopian migrants that have moved into the country, Russian when the Iron Curtain fell, immigration from Europe as anti-Semitism grew in Europe. And I like to say right now we are in the midst of the latest wave of immigration to the country as well as to Beersheba, making it an extremely dynamic and exciting place to live. Everybody knows Israel is known to be the startup capital of the world. It is known for technology. Located right next door to our campus is a technology park. There are 2 train stops in Beersheba that have helped facilitate the growth of the city, one of which is on our campus. When you exit these train stops, you either go right onto our beautiful enclosed and gated campus, or you head over to the technology park. At this technology park, there is research that is going on in technology, biotechnology, bioresearch, and bioresearch that are completed daily. And these companies that are completing this research often turn to Ben-Gurion University staff, students, Soroka University staff, to assist in this research. This has opened up tremendous research opportunities for our students and our staff. With all these changes in the history of the city make the Beersheba a very dynamic and the perfect place to study medicine. Obviously, for the cultural advantages, you will have all of these groups that have immigrated into the city bring with them their culture, such as dining, entertainment, like you would see in any major city, such as New York, Toronto, and even other cities within Israel. But it also brings to you that perfect city to learn medicine. You will have opportunity to complete research. You will have opportunity and exposure to people from various cultures so that when you do practice, you are prepared to treat patients from all different backgrounds. That's a little bit of the overview on the university and the city. Let's get into some specifics now about our program. MSIH is one of 2 medical schools located at Ben-Gurion University. There is the 6-year Hebrew language program, and there is the 4-year English program, which is Medical School for International Health. For our program, the first 3 years of study take place in Beersheba. The first year incorporates many different aspects to the study. Your first and second year consist of your basic medical school courses, such as in your first year, you will take biochemistry, immunology, physiology, medical ethics. We begin our first year with 2 elements, a year-long introduction to global health. And this is to really familiarize our students with the broad topics of global health, such as exploring social determinants in global health. And this is taught through a combination of interactive lectures, case studies, flipped classrooms, and group exercises. Also, when students arrive, they are evaluated for their competency in Hebrew, their proficiency in the language, and they're tracked accordingly. Some of our students arrived at MSIH without any background in Hebrew, without knowing that there's a different alphabet or that it goes from left to right. Whereas other students arrive having either through study, through life, through living in Israel, are completely fluent in Hebrew, and they are tracked accordingly to their competency in the language. Based on feedback that we received from students, we have amended our Hebrew instruction over the course of many years. So the first half of your first year, Hebrew language instruction is basically familiarity, learning the language, the alphabet, basic conversational words. The second half of your first year is more medical terminology that you will need over the course of your clinical work and your studies of medicine in Israel. Year 2, your Hebrew instruction takes into account patient communication. And almost that entire year is patient intake in Hebrew, so that by the time our students are advanced to the third year and on the wards of hospitals in Israel, they are prepared both academically, covering the coursework, as well as in the language preparation. Also, in our second year, students prepare with an USMLE prep course. This is an actual course all students are required to take, no matter where you will plan on completing your residency and going on to practice. This was based on feedback that we received from our students, so that our students will be taking their USMLEs on the same track as if they were in a US medical school. And just as a caveat, so everybody knows in terms of admissions requirements and guidelines, you must hold citizenship in a country in addition to Israel if you hold Israeli citizenship, so it must be a dual citizenship with another country. And you must have completed high school or your undergraduate college degree outside of Israel. These are guidelines that are set for the school by the Ministry of Education in Israel, and we don't really have any leeway in these. These are set guidelines that must be met. So your first 2 years, I've gone into a little bit of depth. Also, in addition to that year-long global health clerkship, you continue global health modules through your second year at MSIH. So you're continuing your study of medicine through the body systems, your science courses, but you're also completing global health studies and in learning how the two intersect and how global health is incorporated into these basic sciences. And you pick various electives that are available to our students, such as the history of medicine or medicine and society. That prepares our students for the third year rotations. The third year rotations are done at primarily 3 hospitals in the southern part of the country. I actually just realized I left out one important part of the first year as well. Starting the second half of your first year, students will have clinic days around the country. So while our program is based in Beersheba, you also have the opportunity to explore the country and learn from the sciences and the medical facilities around the country in a volunteer position, as well as doing clinical rotations. The majority of our third year clinical rotations are performed at Soroka University Hospital, which is a state-of-the-art facility located right across the street from our campus. It's really a huge, very active facility. As you could see from this slide, it has over 1,100 beds. And it is, although there are some smaller hospitals in the Negev, this is your main hospital for servicing the entire Negev, which is a huge geographic area. In one day, you could see thousands, hundreds. In one evening, you could see over 200 births just at Soroka. Some other hospitals where we are also affiliated, where our students complete clinical work, include Barzilai Hospital in Ashkelon, and Asuta Hospital, which is a state-of-the-art facility in Ashdod. Asuta, I believe, is only about 5 years old, and it's over a 300-bed hospital that is already known. It's just had a huge update to its OBGYN department, as well as its emergency medicine departments. So all of these hospitals are state-of-the-art and busy. Also in your third year, we continue our unique global health coursework with cross-cultural workshops. These clinical clerkships provide exposure to diverse patients from Israel's southern population, including the Bedouin and Ethiopian communities, as well as immigrants from the Soviet Union, Africa, the Americas, and the Middle East. This prepares students to treat patients wherever they will eventually practice, whether in urban, rural, or underserved areas. In addition, there is another emergency medicine course. There is the first one that is given at the beginning of your first year, which gives students an opportunity to really not just start their studies, but interact. It's a very hands-on course in the first year where they tend to interact, where it binds the students together socially. In the third year, there is an additional emergency medicine course that goes into more depth. Give the floor back to you, Kelly.
Thanks, Beth. So Beth covered the first 3 years of study at MSIH. I'm going to talk a little bit more about the fourth year now. So in the fourth year, students really have an option. They decide at the end of their third year what they want to do going into their fourth year. There are some students who want to stay in Israel, so they do have the option to complete their fourth year clinical electives in Israel. Most of our students do go back to North America and do their fourth year clinical work there. It occurs basically July through December, and they're required to do 4 one-month clinical rotations. Some will do 5, some will do 6, but they are required to do 4 one-month clinical rotation. And they really vary the type of rotations that they're doing based on where they want to do residency, what they want to do residency in, and the level of the clinical rotation. So some of them are what we call a sub-internship, which is basically they're working just as almost a resident would, as if they had already graduated from medical school, getting to do all of those hands-on things and really manage patients. But they go through the process of applying to clinical electives for their fourth year with the support that we offer both on both sides of the Atlantic. So we have a New York-based and an Israel-based electives coordinators who really help the students and guide them in selecting these clinical experiences for their fourth year. The students also receive advising from advisors in Israel, from the director of our North American office, who went to medical school in Israel and now is a physician at Columbia, as well as one of the deans at Columbia's College of Physicians and Surgeons. They give the students suggestions based on, again, where they want to do residency, what they want to do residency, and how to go about and select those clinical electives for the fourth year. You can see here we do have relationships with some hospitals that give our students priority in terms of securing some of those clinical rotations: Columbia University Medical Center, Hofstra LIJ, the Mayo Clinic, the University of Tennessee. And some of our students will do several of their rotations through these relationships that we have with these different medical centers throughout the US. But like I said before, others will choose their electives. They might do two through the arrangements we have, but then select their other clinical rotations based again on where they want to do residency. So if they're from California, they might want to go back to California for residency. So they might do 2 of their clinical rotations there. Or if they're interested in a certain specialty, say pediatrics, they may really want to go do a clinical rotation at CHOP in Philadelphia or at Rainbow Babies Hospital in Cleveland. The students get a lot of support. As I said, they're given a list of every single place any one of our students has ever done a clinical rotation. They're put in contact with alumni. They have their advisors. In Israel, they have an advisor really in the New York-based office that really help guide them through this whole process. And these experiences give them that clinical experience outside of Israel for those who choose to do their clinical work in the US or in Canada. It helps them in terms of then securing residency placement in the US or in Canada. But again, if a student wants to complete their fourth year clinical electives in Israel because they plan on entering residency there, that is fine as well. And they receive support from an advisor in Israel who can advise them down that path as well. after they complete all of these clinical rotations, which is really the end of December, students participate in an 8-week global health clerkship. This is really the capstone experience at MSIH, where again, we talked about there's a very diverse patient population in Beersheba, but this really exposes them to a diverse patient population outside of Israel or the US. Traditionally, clerkships have been done in countries such as India, Nepal, the Philippines, Sri Lanka, Ghana, Ethiopia, and Peru. The last 2 years have been a little different. So we've worked with alumni and worked with other medical professionals within Israel and the US, so that for the last 2 years, given COVID, these clerkships have been done in underserved areas and areas treating a very diverse patient population, either in the US or in Israel. Last year, they were done predominantly in the US at places such as Indian reserves, rural areas of the US, inner cities in the US, Christian health centers down south that serve very, very underserved populations. This past year, the students, well, we were able to travel again. The clerkship sites really weren't ready to accept our students. They're still dealing with a lot of things from the pandemic. So our students completed these global health clerkships in Israel. I participated in a global health roundup where the students presented what they learned at these global health clerkships. And really, I was astonished, excuse me, by what the students had to say and how much they really enjoyed these clerkships within Israel and the diverse patient populations they treated. One of the sites was in the Bedouin clinics down south in the southern part of Israel. Another was up in Nazareth Hospital, treating a large percentage of Israel's Arab population. And the other one was up north in the Golan Heights, where they treated a population that mainly originated from Syria. So they really worked with, again, very diverse patient populations, oftentimes underserved patient populations, and learned a lot about cultural competency, about treating diverse patient populations, about working with in places that may not be as well resourced as your hospitals, say at like Soroka University Medical Center Hospital, where they're doing their third-year clinical rotations, where they have all the technology and resources available to them. These sites don't necessarily always have that. So they really learn how to work with the other healthcare professionals and see how they're able to provide the quality care that they're able to provide despite limited resources. As what will happen next year, we're hoping to go back to the sites, but as anybody can attest to, I'm sure on this call, the pandemic has made things very unpredictable. And so we're flexible and have made the best of the situation in the past 2 years. And like I said, I really have been amazed by the takeaways the students have had from these experiences, even though they might not have been what they expected at first. Just some more information about campus life before we go on and talk about what our students do after they graduate. So students at MSIH, Beth already talked about, we're a small school, but we're part of a big university, which is great because the students become a very close-knit community. They become a family. They know each other very well. They know the students a year or two ahead of them very well. They know the faculty very well. They really become each other's support systems. They study together. They travel together. They spend weekends together. They spend Shabbat dinner together. So it's really, they become a very close-knit community, and that is great. But at the same time, they're part of a big university with all of the resources available that a big university has. So there's a lot going on at Ben-Gurion University, from different things through the Hillel, through the International Student Union, all different kinds of things like that. Additionally, I do want to point out, I am shocked for the size school that we are, MSIH, how active our student body is and how many different opportunities that we have available for them and that they have created for themselves. So we have a very active MSIH student council. There are class reps, there are different committees within the student council. The students get very involved. There's an AMSA. They have all different kinds of interest groups. So students interested in pediatrics or students interested in surgery. There's a group that works with the refugee center. There's a group that provides more end-of-life support at the hospital. There's a music therapy group on campus. There's all different kinds. And there's a basketball club on campus. There's all different kinds of activities for the students to be involved in that really, I think, make the medical school experience fun. Medical school is challenging and it's a lot of studying, but they really do a lot together to make it stand out. There's even an MSIH prom, which is a very big event at MSIH and the students really enjoy. And last but not least, before I just talk about life on campus, I want to add about life off campus. There's so many opportunities, not just in Beersheba, but the students travel. They get to experience all different parts of Israel. I've been watching some of their posts on social media. Actually going to reach out to some of them and ask if we can do a story about where they've traveled throughout the semester, just because their pictures and their photographs and their adventures look so great. They really get to travel throughout the entire region. It's really great to see that they're taking advantage not only of what they're learning in medical school and what their experiences are in Beersheba and on campus, but throughout Israel and throughout the whole area. They're really taking about part of getting in the whole medical school experience.
Thank you. So now that we've given you a bit of an overview of the program, let's review a little bit what happens after our students graduate. Upon graduation, upon successful completion of your coursework, our students receive a medical degree from Ben-Gurion University of the Negev, as well as a global health certificate. Our students are then well prepared to go on to residency in the US, Canada, Israel, and around the world, where you could find our alumni practicing and assisting students during their studies. We'll discuss that in a moment. The match rate in the US for students who graduate our program is it's typically over 90%. Our students do very well. They're really on par with top medical schools in the US. Our students who stay in Israel are doing particularly well as well. Also, they're going on to stage around the country, and they're going on to residency in Israel. Now, for a small school, we have such a high success rate for our students for several reasons. One of which is the academic standards of our school. Our school is known with our relationships with top institutions, as Kelly mentioned, for electives courses. They would not maintain these relationships unless they were confident of the academic standards of the school. We also assist with placing our students with residency. As Kelly mentioned, if students is interested in practicing in a locale, we encourage them to complete electives there. We send letters out for all those who are applying to residency within the US. We will offer to send a letter to that residency program director, just in case they had not heard of our program, introducing the program, and of course, introducing and highlighting the student that is applying for residency. Within Israel, our students do very well on stage and residency because our program is known. Ben-Gurion University is known as one of the top academic institutions in the world. You see here just a few listings between here and the next slide, next two slides, of some of the institutions where our students have gone on to complete residency. And as you can see, these are top institutions. This slide just really highlights a few of the places where the institutions where our students have gone on for US residency match. Of note, it's very important to notice that not the majority of our students will go on to the primary care fields of medicine, such as OBGYN, pediatrics, and internal medicine. However, our students are also matching in very challenging specialties, such as anesthesiology, ophthalmology. But they're not just even matching in these difficult specialties. The majority of our students are matching in their first choice. Now, as we mentioned, our students can go on for residency, both in US and Israel. Really a huge beauty of our program is that this does not need to be decided until the third year. Many of our students, we see it often, will come into the program thinking we're definitely going back to the US for residency. Then they fall in love with the country. They realize what Israel has to offer, and they say, we're going to stay in the country. And then in your third year, you just choose to complete your fourth year electives in Israel, and vice versa as well. We have students that have entered the program, committed to staying in Israel, and then they say, you know what, we would like to complete residency in the US. And the program affords students both options. As the previous two slides listed some of the institutions where our alumni are based in the US, top institutions, you could see our students are doing well in Israel as well. And because of the training that they receive as MSIH students, they can go on to practice in the top institutions in the country or in small medical centers. Similarly, in the US, we have graduates practicing at top medical centers or at a city MD in Midtown Manhattan. In Israel, there are institutions such as Hadassah University and Kerem, Soroka, Ichilov Hospital, or they could be practicing in your local Clalit. The head of our Alumni Association is practicing at Clalit in Beersheba, and she's doing thriving there. So really the gamut of anywhere you'd like to practice is open to you. Some of our graduates are also very acutely aware of that overlap between global health and public health. They have gone on to serve for governmental agencies such as the Ministry of Health in Israel and the CDC in the States, working on immunology and working with the population there. Our students really, our alumni have a unique perspective. Our alumni, being that they practice in so many diverse institutions, also have become extremely helpful in helping our students find locations for residency. Especially during the pandemic, that was very important. And now that our school is over 20 years old and our alumni are more established, they really have more opportunities to assist our current student body, assisting them in helping find residency, assisting in finding clinical opportunities, and in mentoring our students as well.
Thanks, Beth. So we've talked a lot about our program, about life in Beersheba, life at BGU and MSIH, and what our alumni are doing. But we want to take a step back now because we get so many questions about what we're looking for in terms of our applicants. What is the average MSIH student profile? So we're going to just talk about this, but let me preface by saying we really don't have an average or typical student. Our students are very diverse. They come from a diversity of backgrounds and experiences, and we think that's really one of the things that makes MSIH unique, that the students not only learn from our faculty, but they get to learn from each other. But in terms of what we're looking for, first and foremost is academics. We do take a very holistic approach to the admissions process, but medical school, like I said, is challenging, and we want our students to be able to succeed. So we do look at academics. The two things we're really looking at are your MCAT score, and we're not just looking at an overall number. As you can see, our average MCAT score is a 509, but we're looking at the breakdown. We're looking at how you did in the different sections and how that really compares to your transcript. So we look at your average GPA, which on average our students have a 3.6 undergraduate GPA, but we're also looking at the coursework you took. What different courses did you take? How did you do in your science courses? What were the different grade trends? Maybe you had a rough freshman year, but then you really picked it up by the time, and you hit full stride by the time you're in your third or fourth year of undergrad. Or maybe you have a master's degree, and we'll look at those grades as well. We'll look at your chemistry grades, but we'll look at your chemistry grades and we'll also look at how you did on the chemistry section of your MCAT. So we look at those back and forth in conjunction with one another. About a third of our students at MSIH are not science majors. So yes, we do get a lot of biology, chemistry, neuroscience majors, but we also get a lot of anthropology, sociology, religion, economics majors, all different majors. As long as you've taken the required prerequisite coursework, we really don't have a preference what you major in. Major in something that you're passionate about, something that interests you. We just require that you have taken 2 semesters of biology with labs, 2 semesters of general or inorganic chemistry with labs, 2 semesters of organic chemistry, one can be biochemistry with labs, and then a semester of physics and a semester of math, or 2 semesters of physics. But again, you can major in whatever interests you as an undergrad. We really have no preference, and we think it adds a little bit to the diversity of our class in a different way by having students from all different majors. What else we look for? As I said, we took a holistic approach to the admissions process, and we really delve very deeply into everything you submit to us. So we're going to look at your CV. We're going to look at how you spent your time outside of the classroom. What did you do? Were you just trying to fill up your CV, or were you doing things that really interest you? We're looking for students who are committed to volunteer work. Almost all of our students have done some volunteer work as undergrads, and the variety of volunteer work they do is really pretty extensive. Some of them have volunteered as EMTs, some of them have volunteered as tutors, all different kinds of things. Magen David Adom, some of them have volunteered there, some of them have volunteered with food pantries, with Habitat for Humanity. It doesn't really matter to us what you're doing for your volunteer work, just that you've volunteered and you're committed to helping others. Interest in global health or public health is something that we look for. It's not a requirement that you've majored in global health or public health or have a minor in that, or that you've traveled to a third world country to help underserved populations. What we're looking for is a general interest in global health or public health. It could be that you've taken one course in that area. It could be that you took an economics course and learned about economic disparities and how they manifest themselves in healthcare. It could be that you've really all different things. It can be that you've done that experience abroad. It can be that you've volunteered in a local clinic. It can be that you're involved with COVID testing, or getting people to get COVID vaccines. So a whole bunch of different things that are related to global health or public health. Research experience is not required to enter MSIH. Our students do research while they're with us. But it's just something that we see a lot of on applications. People tend to have research experience. It's, again, not required. If you're passionate about it, definitely do research. It tells us what you chose to spend your time with outside of the classroom. And it really tells us more about you as a person and what you're doing. We also look very extensively, like I said, not only at your CV, but your letters of recommendation. We want to hear what others have to say about you as a student, as a person, as a learner, as a member of society. So we really do look at those letters of recommendation. We like 2 of them to be academic in nature. So from somebody who knows you in a classroom setting and can really attest to you as a student and as a learner. And then we look extensively at the essays that you submit to us. We require 2 essays as part of our application, and we read them extensively. Want to know more about you? Please don't reiterate what's on your CV. We already have that. Tell us about yourself. Tell us more, something that we don't know. We want to get to know you. And then finally, experience in healthcare. We do not require a certain number of hours of shadowing or being a scribe or working in healthcare. That's really for you to know that this is the path that you want to pursue. Medical school is long, it's 4 years, you have residency after that. So you better be certain before you venture into medical school that this is what you want to do for your career. So really, we're looking for you to have that experience so that you know for yourself, and you can tell us why you want to go into healthcare and why specifically you want to be a physician. So that's just an overview of what we're looking for in terms of an applicant. Again, there's no typical or average person that we're looking for. We're looking for people from all different backgrounds and experiences who bring something unique to MSIH. And this brings me to where our students come from. They do really come from all over the world. We're a medical school focused on global health, so we think it's important to have a global student body. Roughly 70% of our student body does come from North America, US or Canada. But we do have students who come from all over the world as well. Some of them have gone, say they come from China or from Ghana, and they've gone to undergraduate in the US, and then they come to us. But we have others who come directly from their country, say South Africa or Australia or the UK, and they come directly to MSIH. But there's no preference in terms of admissions. There's no preference in terms of scholarships as to what nationality you have or where you come from around the world. So without further ado, I'm just going to put this up here, but I will follow up with each of you so that you have my email, you have our admissions email, which you see there. But I highly encourage you to visit our website. There's a lot of really useful information there. There's weekly news articles. There's information on residency match. There's information about the curriculum. There's all different kinds of information on our website. So I highly recommend you go there and visit it. And I also recommend you check out our first year student blogs. Our first year students blog, and they blog about everything. They blog about the life in Israel, their classes, how they're studying for exams, their travels, what they're doing on the weekends, everything. So it's really a great resource for you to see if MSIH is the right fit for you. Gives you a little insight into student life at MSIH and what our students are doing, what they're passionate about, how they're spending their time, what they think about the curriculum, what they think about the school, what they think about life in Israel, everything. They talk about everything. So I encourage you to go visit those as well. But without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen and open it up. So if anybody has any questions, you can go ahead and ask Beth or I. But again, I will follow up with an email, so you have my email as well, should you think of a question after today. Okay, I'm going to stop recording.